We are here. We are here. And so we are just taking a moment to scan the readers and listeners, and also to quickly review the prior aspects of this conversation. As well to you, these are separate conversations, and even to the vehicle, they are extended out over quite a period. For us, this is a continuous conversation. And so, in doing a quick recap for ourselves, we are recognizing it would be beneficial to explain some more about the iterations of humans that were altered and perpetuated on the planet. As it is significant to recognize that those beings who were altered without the heavy addition of the reptilian essence and coding, remained more in touch with the, we will say, natural order of the planet and of themselves. And with those who were more reptilian encoded, they were given a deep sense of usurpation. And we recognize this is not a word, but they were given the sense that they could dominate and conquer this great planet. And so you could say it was more inherently encoded within them to not only fight and seek power and control over each other, but overall. And so, of course, with the intermixing of these two groups, many of these qualities became more evenly distributed. And of course, this was, as always, a designed part of the plan, as there are many reasons why it was significant and important for these qualities to be well and evenly distributed among humanity. As well, this was not our intention in the design of this experience. Even we do not have the full scope of the plan. Even we are moving and making our best choices based on what we are observing and the information and perspectives of reality that we do have, which is broad indeed, and yet it is not all. And so it was important for these qualities to be more evenly distributed, as essentially it did create the opportunity for not only many of these qualities to be addressed and resolved through the experience of the souls who chose to incarnate in these bodies, but also it did encourage very important qualities into humanity, such as allowing souls to come in with the deep recognition that they did not belong here, that this was not home. And essentially, this is a quality that was introduced by those with the reptilian coding. And this is significant as it did cause many to begin questioning to begin deeply digging into self and the understanding of why are we here? Who are we? And so we could expand upon this greatly, but it is just simply important to make a note of this now. And so another thing we would like to highlight is that essentially, as we have said before, Earth is an amalgamation. It is a mixing pot and melding pot of many different experiences that have unfolded elsewhere. And this is significant and important as the level of evolution that has been found on this planet is significant. And it is quite unique, as we did encourage the unfolding of circumstances that did cause for many people groups to separate, for many significant souls to come in, and many different cultures and perspectives on reality to be introduced, many different political systems as well as religious systems, as we have expanded upon some previously. And this is significant and important as even with those timeline experiences that are, you could say, washed away or closed off, such as the one we previously explored, it is significant completion experiences. And so, while you may have heard the expressions of what was very authoritarian, very controlling, and very suppressive, this is significant for those souls who were having unresolved lifetimes as the oppressors, as those who were in authority and did misuse this. And while this is not a punishment, it is simply the soul choosing to experience both sides of those great interplays, the sovereign and the subject, or we will say the king and the subject, the slave and the enslaver, the abuser and the victim. And so we could go on and on explaining the two sides to many situations. And this is significant as a soul does want to have the full scope of an experience. And so, with many wars, with many political systems, even as we touched upon your religious inquisitions and crusades, these are completion experiences. And for some of these experiences, it is the necessary steps for reality to take in order for these experiences that are currently unfolding to take place. And so while we could speak upon endless wars and the captivation and colonization of many different people groups, these are significant experiences. And while, of course, you do not prefer them, they are not ideal for you from your human perspective. Recognize that souls did come here with the choice of experiencing the experiences that were unfolded. And so we know this is much to wrap your heads around. We know this is a difficult concept to accept, and yet it is so. And truly, from your human perspective, you cannot understand the impact that one soul's journey has on the collective as a whole. And so, for all of these experiences, those who do survive, live on, they are greatly impacted by those who do pass on. And so, this is a great point for contemplation to consider what it is that we have shared. And so, we would like to give the experience of one of those who was a very active participant in the Inquisition. And he was participating in this under the guise of following the commands of God, following the commands of the church. And we say this was a guise as, while he did truly believe in this, there was much more significant things unfolding from our perspective. And so while there was, you could say, a religious fervor, believing truly that he was doing right, this was the completion of other lifetimes where he had been the oppressed, where he had been sought out and captured, and much harm done to the body because of beliefs that were held and perspectives that were taken a stand against. And so in this lifetime, he found himself to be the perpetuator of those things. And without guilt or remorse or second thought, he did perpetuate some of the most heinous things upon other individuals who believed differently. And yet, there came a day. There came a day when the individual who had murdered him in many lifetimes, in much the same circumstances, did come across him. He had been arrested for speaking out against the church. And while you may think that the man wanted to take revenge and had essentially a bloodlust for this individual without even fully knowing why, this is not so. And while he did perform his duty, he could not shake a sense of knowing, remembering this individual. Though he knew he had never consciously met him in this lifetime, he was unaware and unwilling to engage with anything to do with outside of this physical realm. And yet the remembrance stuck. He could not get this individual out of his mind. And so it is that when the individual did come to him in a dream, he was open and receptive to this. And he asked the man why. Did he feel as if he knew him? He asked the man why it was that he did not struggle or fight or recant his sins when he was put to the question. And so the man answered. The man showed him visions of many other experiences they had had together, and not all of them were in conflict. Some of them were in great friendship. He showed the man a version of them that was outside of this physical realm. Great companions and friends, conversing with each other and sharing their love for each other. And so the man also shared why he did not struggle or fight or repent, as he did feel deeply convicted to stand for what he stood for in this lifetime. He felt that the church and what the man was doing were wrong. And of course, since the man had passed on out of the body, he had the opportunity to recognize and learn the significance of why this was unfolding. And so he shared what he could. It turned the man's heart, who was the torturer, essentially. He could not stop contemplating on it and thinking on it. And so, as he was recognizing the inquisitions of the church were growing more and more out of control, he did begin to meet with his fellow brothers. He did begin to speak some of these things that had been revealed to him. As part of what was revealed by the man who had been killed was the true love, the true desire of us in higher dimensions for how you humans should participate with love and acceptance and without malice or violence in your hearts. And so the man expressed this to his fellows. He began to answer questions and work with them as the man he had killed continued to appear in his dreams. And essentially, he was a pivotal force in the ending of church inquisitions. And while they did not end until after his death, he was what started the boulder rolling down the hill, started the process of evolution beyond that sense of mindless violence. And while, of course, this did continue in some capacities, it was greatly altered by this one man. And so we have continuously encoded experiences and epiphanies into individuals within these systems in order to bring about the evolution that we have needed to take place to bring you forward to where you are now. The fighting, the control, the suppression, the erasure of culture. And so, while it may seem as if your world has evolved into chaos, chaos is the illusion of those who are looking too closely at the tapestry that is being woven. As where you see chaos, we have seen a continuous collaborative movement towards harmony in many different ways and forms. And while it may not seem progress that where once tribes were warring against each other and now nations of great people are warring against each other, this is greater community. This is greater possibility for voices to be heard. And so now, where you are finding yourselves currently in your experiences, many voices are being activated. And while you may think that just you sharing, just you making changes in yourself and your life, opening yourself up to love and acceptance and understanding has little to no effect on the world and those around you, that could not be farther from the truth. And so, as you are able to recognize those significant figures in your history who have brought great change to the world and the perspectives that it holds, recognize that all of you are equal forces for change. And so we could continue on about the importance and significance of the awakening experiences. And we could speak upon it from many angles. And yet we are saying it is significant for you to recognize the greater perspective of this tapestry. If the awakening and the transcension is unstoppable, and if you are not truly the bodies, but you are eternal souls, then truly where is the tragedy in being given freedom and liberation from this reality? And so as many are being activated into awakening, the expansion of the conscious mind, much is changing. And it does only take so many until this change is readily apparent and inevitable. And so you are finding yourselves even past that point now. All of you on your awakening experiences who are dedicated and focused to the full remembrance and recognition of self, and then the full expression of this, the full expression of our perspectives of equality, love, and acceptance. You are truly the force that is pushing the boulder down the hill. And so, as was stated before, in the recognition that what unfolds in the world is essentially a large-scale version of what unfolds within all individuals, the inner conflict and war, which does eventually lead to peace when it is addressed and not resisted. Violence begets violence. Closed-heartedness and closed-mindedness begets closed-heartedness and closed-mindedness. And when everyone thinks in this way of like begets like, where's the change? And so it is when a response is vastly different from the original action. This is when change occurs. And so when you recognize that religion is integrated with separation and hierarchy, the response to that is unity and equality. When you recognize the systems of government are for control and suppression, and so you radically are free and expressive, this begets change. When you recognize that all of your political systems here on earth are meant to divide and separate and engender hate and anger, and so you choose to be peace and love, unified and open, this begets change. And so we could go on and on. And this is why we say submission to a system, submission to a man is never the path we are guiding you to take. Sometimes, yes, to work within these systems and frameworks, and yet never do we ask you to truly submit, as we are wanting you to be open and free thinking. And yet the core principles that we do offer of equality, unity, love, and acceptance are vital to this. And so many of the teachings that have been passed down and shared, and yes, even distorted and disgruntled, have been with this core in mind. They have been encoded into all and all systems. And so now is the time for you, our brothers and sisters, our other soul aspects, to be the voice, to highlight this encoding, to highlight your own encoding, and to stand up and speak out, not in anger, not in violence, but in love, in peace and compassion. As you have heard it said by religious figures to love your enemy, to love yourself and hold reverence to the beyond. And while we do not ask you to worship us, never, ever, we do ask you to love all, as this is the transformational shift that has been hidden and suppressed and passed around in back rooms for such time as this. Love and love fiercely. This does not mean you are a doormat. This means you love yourself so completely, utterly, that you honor and respect yourself. You analyze yourself. You expand yourself. And this does mean you love others so radically that you approach them with compassion and love, that you see them fully, truly for who they are. And so these are the bridges that have been offered to humanity for quite some time. As a bridge truly does offer a pathway to an alternate point, a center point, if you will. And so we have offered bridges and pathways, not to force individuals down, but to lovingly guide those whose life design was to awaken and become a force of service for humanity, do have the opportunities to do so. And without everything unfolding exactly as it has, these opportunities would be null and void, too difficult to recognize for all who are needing this. As again, for some, it is significant to submit themselves to a religious system. And yet, so many are called to more. You are called to more. And so, with that being said, with a deeper recognition being given of why these experiences are so important and significant, we will recede. That is all.